and welcome back to Bears on Tap, a podcast about the Chicago Bears presented to you by On Tap Sportsnet. I'm your host, Brandon Suarez. You can follow me on Twitter at Bdon300. And today I'm joined by my co-host, Ron Luce at Luce on Tap and Joey Ricotta at The Riot326. We got a short week this week. I just left the NIU game a little late night action, so we apologize for the late episode, but we do appreciate you for tuning in. With that being said, I think we got to start with the big news of the day, boys. It was released this afternoon. Yeah, crack them. Definitely going to need a nice ice-cold beer after today. Pour up, Ronnie boy. But it was released today by The Patch, which I don't know how truly credible the source of The Patch is, but the guy was on, I believe, 670 and ESPN 1000. And throughout the day, bigger news outlets were picking up the story. And the story reads, and I quote, Matt Nagy will coach the game on Thursday, but he will be fired after Thursday. And as you guys can see in my name, we can't even fire correctly. So we'll start with that. I personally, and the people that have been a part of this show, no matter what host you look at, no matter what writer you look at on the Bears on Tap roster, we've all been, fire Nagy. Get Nagy out of here. Pace might have to go. Ted Phillips need to just worry about what's going on in the accounting side of things and nothing having to do with football. And now we have this report that our head coach, ahead of, the Thanksgiving game, another primetime game where literally everyone and their mom, and I mean that, everyone and their mom will be watching this game, gets to see us in the biggest shit show state that we've been in the last 5 or 10 years. And there's been some ugly scenes, but you got to look at it like this. The locker room has been, in shambles for about a year now. There's been reports of it. Everybody and their mom, again, has their sources. Be careful who you get your information from. I'll be honest with you on that, because I'm not calling anyone out specifically, but there's a lot of people on Bears Twitter. There's a lot of people on the Bluebird in general that will compromise their integrity for the story, to get the story out first. You see it as high up as Adam Schefter. So one thing I want to set clear is you're never going to get that from the three of us. We will always do our research. We'll always make sure the story that we're putting out is as accurate as possible. And with that being said, where do we even go with this? We see a report that says, hey, Matt Nagy's going to be fired. But, hey, why don't you go out and coach for us on Thursday and go give us your best self-sabotage? Where are you guys at with this whole situation? Because it's quite frankly the biggest mess I've seen with the Bears and PR over the last 5 seasons.
Well, Bdon, I think all three of us can sit here and agree that when we think Bears and we think PR, we initially think gong show, clusterfuck, insert whatever word that's a part of the Bdon onomatopoeia that you want to put there to describe a terrible situation, because that's what it always is with this Bears team and PR. Really, the only logical sense that I have behind why Nagy is sticking around through Thursday is because of the short week. Maybe they didn't want to just totally drop the grenade in the locker room, and by them playing on Thursday, it gives them, an extra, 3 days essentially to work with interim head coach, whoever it might be, probably Chris Tabor. Nonetheless, but let's get back to the real thing here. Like you said, you're saying it right here for everybody watching at home. And for those that are listening to this as a podcast, let me fill you in. We all have our name tags. Joey Ricotta, as we like to call him here. Ron Luce. At Bdon300, we can't even fire correctly. That is so fucking true. We can't fire correctly. The Bears don't do a lot of things correctly. I think all Bears fans can get on board with that. But yeah, we can't even fire Nagy correctly. We couldn't have canned him before the Ravens game. We couldn't have canned him before the Steelers game. We couldn't have just canned him in the offseason when they decided to give him another chance with a rookie quarterback, that's a whole nother story. But guys, they can't fire correctly. This is just going to be such a gong show over the next not even 48 hours that we're sitting here, because everybody's going to be sitting on their hands going, is he actually going to get fired on Thursday? Could you imagine all this shit this week for them to not fire him after Thursday's game and him still coach them next week? Oh my God, it would be so Bears. It would make me want to drink more than just one of these pints. A little shout out to the GOAT ever, with Waltman. But
I was going to say, I love that glass. That's an awesome glass.
Hey, I appreciate that.
Joey, for you, where are you at on this whole clusterfuck of a situation?
I mean, I'm as sick of it as possible at this point because you spend pretty much all day just refreshing, and you don't even really have to refresh because there's a new update every 2 seconds, and it's just like it gets shared in your group chats. Somebody tags you in something. Like I'm just sick of the whole situation because it's like we almost got an early Thanksgiving present. It sounded like, and maybe we still are going to get a Black Friday special, as Ron kind of pointed out in the post game show that we did. After the game on Sunday, he was kind of like, yeah, basically we were saying the turkey's going to taste better. Everything's going to be a little bit better on Thanksgiving.
He kind of called that because literally no more than like 12 hours later after that report came out about him getting canned. So I thought that was funny. I just wanted to insert. I'm sorry. I'll shut up.
No, and you're right. And this is the other thing too. Like I don't know about you guys, but I feel like we're all kind of Bulls fans too, Chicago Bulls fans.
100%.
And just seeing that made my night. I don't care how much bad the Bulls lost last night. And I tweeted this out, like something along the lines of like the McCaskies, this isn't going to sit well with the McCaskies because not only were Bears fans booing Nagy and saying fire Nagy chants at the Bears game, but it bled into the United Center last night. And Bulls fans, which are most of them are probably all Bears fans,
yeah,
just completely overwhelmed the UC and we're chanting fire Nagy. And then it like was also, I guess, was that Saturday when it was the high school game, his son's high school football
Cary Grove at the Cary Grove and Lake Forest game, the student section ended up, and now that it's out that it was the student section, you guys both played high school sports. You're both a part of probably those student sections.
They get rowdy.
Yeah, I myself can say I wasn't because I was just a bad kid in high school. But I have heard stories about what gets said in those student sections. And, I mean, is it classless? Probably, yes. But you're asking a bunch of, 14 to 17-year-old kids to not say some goofy stuff. And I will say, as someone who was at a live sporting event tonight, Ron, I hope that the chant didn't leak over to your matches that you were covering tonight. But at NIU, we had actually talked about it before the game. If there would be a chant, there was no chant. But I do have, I guess you would say like good news, at least in my eyes. There was a Chicago Bears scout at the NIU game tonight. And some of the guys that would fill interesting roles, my friends, guys, friends of the program, I guess you would say, of On Tap, Braden Patton and Clinton Rakovich both had pretty big games. So that was like cool for me to see, knowing that like, there's a Bears scout in the house. They're actually taking the time to get out here. But I did share a chuckle and a little bit of a laugh seeing the video. And you guys can fill me in on where you're at with the whole high school video and the Bulls chant. But I mean, you guys know just as well as anyone, you got Philadelphia, who booed Santa Claus, and not far behind it, you got either us or New York City. Like, there's not too many more passionate fan bases that are going to let you know when you're not doing your job. And at the end of the day, like, I get it. Matt Nagy's a person. He has feelings too, but I even let off the tweet earlier, like, at what point do you just resign?
Right. And continuing with what you're saying there, that theme, I mean, it was kind of worded in a way that, like the article and some of the reports that, hey, maybe that means he's resigning, because he said, that wasn't accurate in the interview. He just flat out denied it and said that's not accurate when he was questioned about it today during his presser. That's not an accurate report. Well, that doesn't mean that it's not accurate that you are going to step down. And feeling all this kind of pressure, who knows? Maybe that is the best case scenario, or what he feels is best, to just step down. And honestly, he wouldn't be wrong, because right now I think every Bears fan, and us included, want to just get this guy the fuck out of here already. It's been way too long. It's been drawn out. I mean, listen, you lose to a backup quarterback with the Ravens, who already have a terrible defense, and you don't do much offensively. And then possibly you could lose to, it sounds like it will be, we'll get into it, but it sounds like it's probably going to be Jared Goff, actually, who will be able to play. You lose to him. I mean, he's just as bad as Big Ben, and worse than Big Ben when it comes to average completed air yards. He's dead last in the NFL. So, I mean, this is just, it's only going to get worse, in my opinion, and it's already hit rock bottom. So, like,
and he doesn't even have any weapons too, bro. Like, he's throwing to Hawkinson, Quintez Cephas, and like
Yeah, DeAndre
and DeAndre Swift out of the backfield. Ron's guy, DeAndre Swift.
Go Dogs.
Yeah, Ron, number 1 in the nation, bro. Holy shit, another week. Please beat Alabama so you can make some room at the table for my Notre Dame Fighting Irish, because I think that's the only way we get in is if there's no Bama.
Fair.
But yeah, we won't make it a college football podcast, but I'm excited for the chaos that the last week and beyond will bring.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah, go Dogs. But yeah, I mean, it really is an interesting case with Detroit, right? Because we sit here and we kind of think about it and we look at this team and like they're beat up, right? They're missing some key players. And Jared Goff is atrocious. Again, just I'm gonna get on this high horse. Bdon, I know you can respect this, being a smaller guy, undersized to play football.
I had to fix my microphone. I'm like looking at you guys and I'm sitting up. I promise you, everyone, I'm sitting up. I'm just 5'8". There's nothing I can do.
Hey, and that's okay.
We can see you this time, because I was looking back at that show from Sunday, and it was like one of those hidden characters that you got to unlock in a video game, because
just like all neck. Oh well, yeah. No, yeah. I sometimes on Sundays I go and watch the game with my mom. So that was the poor lighting of my mom's family room, but that's like in every other week thing. So we'll see. If we were doing it Thursday, I'd definitely be coming to you live from my mom's family room because it's Thanksgiving. But
I just feel like we unlocked you today. We unlocked you tonight. Now you're like we hit the next level here. So
you're the unlocked character for the night. But I mean, just thinking about Jared Goff, and we're talking, he's the perfect example of every NFL scout being old school and falling in love with what a player looks like rather than what a player's actually done. And we see it time and time again at the NFL level, and they continue to get it wrong. And, being a guy that played in the NAIA, I watched a guy that was 5'7" be an All-American at the NAIA level. Like, I don't give a fuck how big you are. If you can play football, you can play football. Jared Goff's not a good football player. You add that to the fact that he has no legitimate receiving core, like outside of TJ Hawkinson, like you guys said. And DeAndre Swift is really their only weapon out of the backfield. Yet, why do I get some stupid fucking nudge and urge and spidey senses tingling on this Tuesday night that Detroit's going to find some way to make this more interesting than it should be? I don't care who's at quarterback for the Bears, right? We already know Justin Fields didn't practice the last 2 days. We were talking about the injury report amongst the three of us before we jumped on live here. We kind of know where the state of the roster is right now. But even with Andy Dalton at quarterback, you're sitting here and telling me they shouldn't beat the Detroit Lions. They should. Yee has little faith because there's just this whole fuckery going on right now with Nagy. And then you build on top of that, the team just seems to be in shambles. 2 weeks in a row that, again, we hammered this home on Sunday, right? 2 weeks in a row that they had a lead late in the game and just decided to piss it away like every drunk Cubs fan in the bleachers at Wrigley does with their beer that they consume before first pitch. It's absolutely mind-numbing. So I don't know about you guys. I know we're kind of starting to phase away from the Nagy talk and more into the actual matchup talk here on Thursday. But the Bears realistically, right? Common sense human being would sit there and go, the Bears should win this game. Should win this game. They've owned Detroit. I mean, Mitch isn't there anymore, so I don't know if Mitch can own Detroit anymore. But they've owned Detroit. Nagy's 2-0 on Thanksgiving. And if this is his last game, maybe that's why they kept him, guys. He's 2-0 on Thanksgiving. It's fine. He's got to go 3-0 on Thanksgiving before they can him. But I just have such a terrible feeling about Thursday's game because of everything that's already happening. I don't know about you guys, but I'm a little worried. I'm a little worried that unless we get the news we want to hear on Thursday, that turkey's just not going to taste as good as it normally would, and I'm going to have to eat that much more of it for all the tryptophan to kick in for me to take a nap to sleep away my depression. If the
you're gonna look down at your turkey, and you know how Matt Nagy's bald head resembles a turkey leg, and you're just gonna see his bald mug on your turkey when you go to cut into that thing. I promise you, bro. It's going to be terrible. There's actual good football teams that are playing after us. There's a great college game that day, too. Ole Miss, Mississippi State. There's a lot of football and a lot of good games. And, of course, we have to lead it off with what will probably be a 19-16, absolute stink fest, where there will be several turnovers. There will be several timeouts used at spots that they shouldn't be used at. There will be several, in-game coaching mistakes that even us as armchair GMs will be able to call out, and it's going to be chaos. And I know the Bears are favorite. They're 3-point favorites going in to this game. Like you said, Ron, I do think, like, all BS aside, this is a team that you should be able to beat no matter what's going on, as long as you have a majority of your players. And to be honest, like, with the way this season is going, as much as I would like to see Justin Fields develop, we can't have him out here just taking shots in a year that means nothing. I don't care what anyone wants to say about it. Like, I saw a tweet on Sunday. I know I mentioned it to you before the game, or after the game, guys, before we started. Nick Foles just be cooling, bro. He's just the coolest man in the room. $10 million to hold a clipboard. Like, let Justin Fields heal. Let him get all right. Let him stop seeing ghosts. And when he's ready to come back, bring him back. Andy Dalton hasn't looked terrible, but this is a matchup of, like, has-been quarterbacks, you know? Jared Goff he's never really reached his potential. I don't really think he will, especially, you know, in the Detroit Lions franchise. But Andy Dalton has played good football over his career, and he actually really gave us a spark on Sunday. Not to say that, like, we were losing or we couldn't move the ball because of Justin, because there was a multitude of different things. You know, players were dropping passes. Plays weren't called deep down the field. We weren't taking shots. And then all of that compacted, you get some extra people in the box, and then before you know it, you got a cracked rib on your rookie quarterback. So it was a combination of things. I think going into this game, heavy dose of Monty, heavy dose of Khalil Herbert. Like, let's shorten this game. Let's not embarrass ourselves, and let's find a way to scratch and claw a victory in Detroit on Thanksgiving. And eventually we're going to have to deal with the whole Matt Nagy situation after that. But if this team loses, I'm putting this on record right now. If this team loses on Thursday and Matt Nagy is not fired by the time I cut into my turkey and see his bald head on that damn turkey, I'm boycotting this team. I don't know how I'm going to – maybe I won't watch – I got to watch the games because I got to do the pods. I'm not buying anything Bears related. I'm not going to any games. And I'm not, you know, anything Bears related is canceled that costs money in my book, because we are enabling them to be an inept and incompetent franchise. And it's ridiculous that it's even gotten this far. Now I'm talking with my hands. I'm doing the hand. And I got ugly hands too. Hairy as hell. Couldn't be a hand model. But you know what I'm saying? Like, at what point is it actual insanity that we continue to trot out the same coach, the same front office staff, the same charcuterie board and Ted Phillips, and think that it's going to work? Because it's not. And it continues to not work. And everyone, all these, you know how everyone talks about NFL circles? You know, the coaches, the players. Oh, yeah. Once you get a job in the NFL, you're basically in that circle. Mm-hmm. We get laughed at 10 times out of 10 when we are brought up in that conversation. We, right now, as an organization, are in the same category as, like, the Texans, the Jets, the Giants, like, not company that you want to be.
Even the Lions, the team that
even the Lions. I don't know how I didn't even think about the Lions, but yeah.
Dude, okay, let me tell you guys something. You probably already I'm sure you guys know this, but you know the Bears have the longest losing streak in the NFL right now. Mm-hmm. The Lions have a tie. The Bears have the longest active losing streak in the NFL.
And the Lions are 0-9-1.
Is it 5 or 6 at this point? Because it's an annual losing streak. You guys should
Nagy's special.
I don't know if Joey was a part of On Tap last year during Bears season, but Ron, I know you remember when they did that Nick Foles cut up video. They did a Nick Foles cut up video to the background of Dreams and Nightmares by Meek Mill, and it's me just like dong on the table making predictions about Nick Foles, this, that, and the third. We lose the next 6 games, so zip lips. We found a way to be on a 5 or 6 game losing streak again this year. And the thing that I don't know if we talked about enough on Sunday, that 2-game stretch against the Ravens and Steelers was the season. Because if you win those 2 games, you're 5-5. You're right there with the Vikings. You're not going to win the division. The Packers are the best team in the NFC, I think, right now, or at least the most complete team. And it pains me to say that, but I think the Packers and the Bucs will probably play again in that NFC Championship. And I think the Packers may be able to get past the Bucs. That's way looking ahead. but every year, we're always trying to just be on that graphic, that in the hunt graphic, have an opportunity. If the ball falls our way in week 16 or 17, we can sneak into the playoffs. That's not going to happen this year. For people that bet the Bears win total, sorry, that's probably not happening either. I stayed away because I value my money and I put it on the Bulls instead, and that might cash by Christmas. But the way I look at it is the players have to go out and play for themselves. Forget about Matt Nagy. Forget about this front office. Forget about guys like us that scream into a microphone twice a week. Go out and play for the name that's on the back of your jersey and hopefully for the city, hopefully for the Bears. But we need to see good individual performances. We need to see players that are young getting better. And we need to, kind of, as a podcast, fine-tune what we want to see from this team for the rest of the year because, like I said, we ain't going to the playoffs this year.
Yeah, and I think to add on to what you're saying there too, Bdon, right? It's like the rest of this season feels like such just a let's see what the youth of this team does. Because there are pieces of this team that I think truly are a part of the future. And I think we as Cubs fans understand the notion when I say this of building the next great Cubs team, right? That's kind of the Bdon onomatopoeia that the Cubs have been using this offseason. How are they going to build the next great Bears team, right? Like that's who are those guys? Who can we identify on the current roster? And I think there's a handful of players that we can say confidently. I think we can all sit here and say Jalen Johnson, Roquan Smith, Darnell Mooney, Justin Fields are all a part of that. David Montgomery's likely a part of that.
Throw Gibson in there because Gibson balled out this week. He played phenomenal.
Travis Gibson, I think, is another name. Like there are a number of names on the Chicago Bears roster that can legitimately be a part of a competitive Bears team. And I think that they will be. But it really is about those guys taking steps forward, right? Seeing Gibson continue to ball out, filling in for a guy like Khalil Mack, continuing to see a guy like Jalen Johnson be the lockdown corner that we all believe he will be and continue to be in this league. Roquan Smith just continuing to be the dominant, most underappreciated all-pro-quan animal in the middle of the Bears defense. And, and seeing guys like Darnell Mooney take those steps forward and Monty and Herbert and, and even some of the young offensive linemen. Like I'm actually hoping we get to see Tevin Jenkins this season. I think Larry Borum has done a nice job at right tackle. And the more and more he plays, the more and more you hear people kind of going, hey, maybe the Bears fucking found something in the 5th round with this kid. Maybe he can be at least, if at worst, a league average right tackle that's good enough to get the job done. We've seen James Daniels and Cody Whitehair get the job done. I don't know what's going on with your boy from Notre Dame and Mustapher because he took a huge step back this season. But maybe we do get to see something positive of a guy like Tevin Jenkins for the rest of the year whenever he becomes fully healthy and can play again. That's really, to me, at least to me, what the rest of the season's about. But it's also about putting these guys in a position to succeed, right? We bitched and moaned and whined and cried on Sunday about the lack of putting Fields in a proper situation, right? He rolled out once? He rolled out maybe once.
Can you not hear us, Joey? You good?
Little technical difficulties.
Yeah. Ron, we got you. I can hear you, brother. You're good.
All right. But while Joey's figuring out his things here, but how many times did Justin Fields roll out on Sunday? Once? Literally once?
Not nearly enough. And then the first, what was it? The first play that Andy Dalton came in, he rolled out instantly.
Right. And literally, that infuriated the hell out of me because, and we alluded to it a little bit on Sunday's show, right? Because, we talk about, play action and setting that up for Fields and rolling the pocket and moving him, letting him throw on the run. He's an incredible a quarterback when he throws on the run.
He killed it with the RPOs at Ohio State.
Disgusting. Yeah. Right. All the things, and then testing the Ravens secondary. All the things they should have done with Fields in the game, they didn't do until Andy Dalton stepped into the game. And that I literally wanted to, there is a very, probably can hear it, a very hard wood table that I'm using right now for this laptop. I wanted to bash my head off said table.
Yeah.
When that didn't happen, right? So I think that's a huge part of the rest of the season too is can they get these young guys in the right position to develop properly? And that's a legitimate concern that I have going forward about this team because who the hell knows what is going to happen here as we're working through things with our boy Joey here.
We're getting them. The boys are back in town. But we lost Joey again. He'll have to be back. I'll pick it up. I'll pick up right where you left
Working
off.
on some technical difficulties.
But the way I look at it, bro, is are we really going to trust like Matt Nagy and this regime to get
Hell
these
no.
players developed? Probably not. But
No.
it goes to like what I was kind of alluding to earlier. Like, he lost the locker room, and you see it's crazy, dude. Doesn't matter what sport it is. When a team fires their head coach, they could be plus 10,000 on the money line. I'm sprinkling the cheese. That team always seemed like the game after the Bears fire Matt Nagy. If it's regular season, we could be playing the Buccaneers and we got a chance. I don't know what it is about a team that flips a switch when their coach gets fired. Like you saw with the Raiders. When the Raiders went through all their shit with John Gruden and him getting canceled and all that and fired and just blacklisted from the league, rightfully so, because he was just being a shitbag, they went out and won the next game, and then they haven't won one since, but they won that game. And the way I look at it for this Bears team is, like you said, you got guys like Jenkins, you got guys like Fields, you got guys like Montgomery and Khalil Herbert. Now we have two quality backs. We would hope we get Tariq Cohen back whenever he's healthy, so you have three technically. And then you have good young receivers. Yeah, Damian Williams. You have Darnell Mooney, who I know like you need the quarterback to be on point for your receiver to grow and develop, but the rapport that Darnell Mooney and Justin Fields have built so far has been great to see. And then, too, we haven't even mentioned them, and I know I get flack for it because during the draft process I called him the next Gronk, and there's still time for that to happen, is Cole Kmet. And when we utilize Cole Kmet correctly, we have a star tight end in our offense. He's able to get down the field and make catches contested. He's able to drag defenders for extra yards. He blocks. Like, people are very critical on Cole Kmet, expecting him to be frickin' Tony Gonzalez 1 year out. And I saw him do some great things at Notre Dame. I watched every single one of his games. Like, the kid will pop eventually. You also it goes back to what you say, though. The coaches aren't putting these players in the best position to win. And we see that every Sunday. We see that when they're putting Kendall Vildor on Mark Andrews or Pat Freiermuth or freaking Rob Gronkowski. You know what I'm saying? Like, I know Gronk wasn't playing when we played them, but like you have to look at individual matchups and you have to make up for the matchups that we're losing with team football and with complementary football. That's one of my favorite like quotes and just like football guy things is you need to be able to play complementary football. You saw it in the Steelers game on Sunday night. They get the punt block. They get a couple stops on defense. Boom, the game's tied up. They take the lead. Now, obviously, they didn't win the game, but you see as the offense makes a play, it makes the defense want to go make a play, and then it makes the kick returner or the kicker want to go make their kick. And it's a domino effect. And when you have an issue at the top with the head coach, it's a trickle-down effect. And the performances lately, as of the last month, well, who was the last team that we even beat? I couldn't even tell you. Do either of you guys know?
That feels like a trivia question at this point.
No, literally, it does because it was that long ago. I'm gonna look it up. I'm gonna look it up. Joey, you can pick up where we left off because we lost you a couple times.
Yeah, sorry about that, guys.
No, you're good. It happens, bro. Technology,
computers. But no. So I actually the last part that I heard a little bit before, just listening to you right there. But I wanted to touch on something when Ron was talking about like
Sorry. I looked it up before. I don't mean to cut you off. Hold your Travis Gibson thought. Speaking of shit show teams that rebound after firing their coach, the last team the Bears beat was the Raiders.
Oh yeah.
Wow.
See? Yeah.
Of course.
That was the week of everything happening. Yeah. I don't know, man.
That made sense.
You you blew a 2-possession lead in a third/fourth quarter lead against the Niners. This team could be like 6-4 right now, but they're poorly coached. My bad, Joey.
No, it's cool. No, it's fine. I also want to talk about that 5.5 live win total that I took like a week or two ago. Yeah, 2 weeks ago before the Steelers game. I took over 5.5 wins, and I'm like, oh yeah, watching Fields ball out. I'm like, we get a win here. We're going to get a win against the Ravens now that Lamar Jackson's out. I'm feeling so good. I'm flying high, and we're still sitting here. So anyways, back to what you were saying, Ron, about Travis Gibson and being a mid-round pick. See, that's part of the reason why I don't know if you guys touched on it while I dropped off, but that's part of the reason why, and I'm not alone here, and I feel like we might all be in agreement here, that Ryan Pace needs to stick around to some extent. Like, if you take him out of the GM role, yeah, he's been bad with contracts. He's been arguably pretty bad with free agency as well, outside of maybe Robert Quinn this year. But like some of his other signings and before this season with Robert Quinn, like not really great moves. But like you look at the talent that he's able to find, especially mid rounds in the drafts, and the move. I know the Giants are getting these picks from the Bears, and they're going to get a great draft spot this season, this next upcoming draft. But the fact that he was able, and he like nutsacked up, put his fucking meat on the table, as you guys always love to say, put his fucking meat on the table and went up there and traded up and drafted Justin Fields. There's no regrets whatsoever. And me being a Bears fan, just like you've been saying, Bdon, just a dumb fucking podcaster that loves Bears football. But you got to keep him to some regard because his ability to scout talent and to find talent, especially in the mid rounds of the draft, has been great. Maybe you demote him or promote him, quote unquote, and give him a different, like make him the president of football operations, whatever.
Special advisor or something. I mean, he's in the football circle. He'll have a job. You know what I'm saying?
Oh, yeah. He's one of those guys.
But you know what? The thing, and I think you brought it up perfectly, is his ability to find talent. Like, he can turn chicken shit into chicken soup. Like, he found Darnell Mooney in the 5th round. Obviously, people knew who Eddie Jackson was, but he was able to nab him in the 4th round.
Amos?
Yeah, Amos, late rounds.
I was gonna say, do you guys? I can already
Nichols?
think of them off
Yeah,
the top of my head.
Nichols,
Bilal
Gibson.
Nichols was a 5th round pick. Gibson.
I was about to say
pick.
Anthony Miller, but I don't know why.
Charles Leno, a 7th rounder. Like,
yeah.
Well,
Yeah,
and
yeah,
let's not forget just this past season now, a guy that we're starting to see the rewards of that I just mentioned a little while ago, and Larry Borum was a 5th round pick.
Yeah, and he's been. He started like half the season?
Right.
Yep.
Trial by fire.
Khalil Herbert?
Yeah,
Khalil Herbert.
there's no doubt. If you look at every draft that Ryan Pace has been a part of since he took over as the general manager for the Chicago Bears, the level of talent, even sure, everybody's like, well, it's 1st round picks. In fairness, Kevin White was hurt. He was undisputably the number 2 receiver in that draft. Let's just be completely honest. And let's be honest, just like every other fucking year in the NFL draft process, if Amari Cooper doesn't get hyped up the way that he does, he might slip to the Bears and be a Bear instead of Kevin White, but you never know. But he got it right on Roquan Smith. Let's call a spade a spade.
And he got it right with Leonard Floyd.
And he got it right with Leonard Floyd. It just didn't work out in Chicago. Right. Like he
was still decent though. Like he wasn't like for bust standards, that guy's not a bust.
No.
You know what I mean?
No. He's a good NFL player. And that's like exactly what you hope for in a 1st round pick. Not every 1st round pick is going to be a star. It doesn't work that way. But, like, look at what he's done in the 2nd round, right? Eddie Goldman was a 2nd round pick. Cody Whitehair was a 2nd round pick. James Daniels was a 2nd round pick. Tevin Jenkins was a 2nd round pick. We hope
even UDFAs too. He snapped on.
Yeah,
we have 2 UDFAs that play regularly on our offensive line. And I know Mustafa's been down this year, but he finds those 2 guys as UDFAs and turns them into starting players.
Right. And that's the crazy thing. It's like, and the list goes on, right? Like you look at the 4th round, he found Nick Kwiatkowski. He got Eddie Jackson there. He found Tariq Cohen there. You know, the 5th round is littered with those guys. Mooney, Nichols, Borum, Gibson. Like the list goes on.
And even
Tyson
Graham. I don't know what ended up happening with him, but that was a kid that I was excited to see. The guy out of Oregon.
He's on the practice squad.
No, I think he's on the.
Give him some burn, bro. We look like shit in the secondary. Let that man eat.
I believe, and I don't want to be wrong on this, but I believe that they might have just promoted him to or signed him to the active roster.
Oh, please. I want to see him.
I could be wrong on that
for you. Let me confirm that for you.
Yeah, I would confirm that. But there was a couple guys too that like, do you really want to see Marquis Christian out there? Like, I'd rather see what Thomas Graham has. You know what I mean? Like,
exactly.
Absolutely.
Or even they've messed with him a lot over the last few years, and injuries have been a part of it. But Trey Roberson.
Yeah.
He played phenomenal football in the CFL for the Calgary Stampeders, I believe it was. And I don't know. I feel like the way the Bears are right now, like we have to basically look at it for what it is. And we talked about it separately off air where we missed our window. And now we're dealing with, overhauling. We're going to have to overhaul the roster most likely. Like there's going to be a lot of changes over the next few years. You can count on guys like Jimmy Graham being gone. You can count on Akeem Hicks being gone. you can count on a handful of other, maybe even Khalil Mack, as much as it pains me to say that. Like, I don't know what the future brings. And the best part about it is no one in that fucking Hallis Hall or in River Forest or Lake Forest or wherever the heck the facility is, they don't know either. So put your seatbelts on. It's going to be a really weird end of this season. That's for damn sure. And, oh, yeah, Karastonga from our guy Alop. That was another steal. And he eats up blocks. And he just is a movable object. I don't even know how to say it. I'm not inertia. Inertia.
I have a good nickname for our boy Kairos here. I feel like because he is so big and he is so wide and he takes up so much room, he's a Tonga truck, not a Tonka truck.
Oh, right? Let's go. Yeah.
The Tonga truck.
It's the Tonga truck.
And I mean, he's a beast. He played really good football at BYU, and you got to be like 32 to be on BYU's team. So I don't know what his actual age is. I'm a little concerned about that.
You're stupid for that.
But confirm it for you now,
bro. I'm calling Coach Hammock in the morning to see if I can suit up for the bowl game. I know I got some eligibility in there.
25. He's 25. He's 25.
Oh, he's 25.
He's actually somewhat young.
That's young. That's young for a BYU guy.
Bdon, you're a redshirt senior right now, or whatever.
Yeah, redshirt senior. Yeah, but you got to look at it like this too. No first round draft pick this year because they put their meat on the table. And if we could all go back and do it again, I don't think there's a single person except for those like 3 Twitter egg accounts that bitch about Justin Fields no matter what he does. Which there are people that are already coming for Fields, like
Albright.
Yeah, Albright. I don't even know who that is, but I saw the tweets in the group chat. Right now, this is a time for us to get behind our players, obviously, because that's all we have. We can't trust our head coach. We can't trust the front office. And just kind of hope for the best. Hope for the development of these young guys. Hope that they can make big plays and find that confidence in the end of this season. But it's hard to do that when you're not winning football games and you're losing the way we are. And going into this game, I think the best game plan for them to win the game is to shorten the game. Yes, I know that sounds crazy. I would like to see 35, maybe 40 minutes time of possession. I know that the Lions offense isn't great, but if we can control the clock, we can control the line of scrimmage and can control the field position battle and not have these goofy ass 3-and-outs where we're throwing a bubble screen or a drag route on 3rd and 12 and take this game by the horns early. We should win this one convincingly and by a hell of a lot more than the 3 points that Vegas is giving us. Will any of that actually happen? Probably not. And that's why we love doing this show.
Yep.
Yeah. Well said. I agree. Like, honestly, especially in a week when you're without Fields, and sure, maybe Dalton comes out and he plays well and maybe throws for like 250 yards and 2 touchdowns or some shit. That'd be nice. Don't get me wrong. But like I'm all here for a heavy dose of David Montgomery and Khalil Herbert. Like feed those two the rock because like you said, Detroit does not have a good offense on paper. Let's just call a spade a spade. Really a good team on paper. But like they can still cause you enough headaches. They caused the Pittsburgh Steelers a headache. They tied the Pittsburgh Steelers. So they're talented enough. They are still an NFL team. Like these are still NFL guys. Like I think a lot of people lose sight of how good you have to be to just be on an NFL roster, no matter how good or bad the NFL team is. But I fully agree with you, man. Just run the rock. Like the Bears have so much more success too, it feels like offensively, even if it's just from a rhythm standpoint, when they just commit to the run game and actually execute better. Like they should be able to move this front 7 of Detroit fairly easily. Like they're not nearly as good as Pittsburgh and Baltimore's front 7. And even against those two teams, they had enough success running the ball to like sort of halfway like sneeze and be like, oh, hey, we're here. We're running the ball. But like, just let Herbert run the rock. Let Monty run the rock. And you know what? If Dalton throws for 100 yards this game, I don't give a shit. Let those two, combine for 250 yards rushing. You know what game I think back to? And I think back to it because I was in attendance for it. 2017. Mike Glennon was still the unheralded, undisputed leader of the Chicago Bears at quarterback. You guys remember that Pittsburgh Steelers game when they ran for like almost 300 yards with Cohen and Howard?
They almost won that game too, right?
They did win it. They walked it off in overtime. Yeah. I got to go to that game with a Steelers fan too, which was even better because I got to rub it in his face that they just lost to the Bears.
You just lost to Mike Glennon.
Literally with Mike Glennon throwing for like 44 yards that day. It was the dumbest statistics I've ever seen in my entire life. That's what I want to see the Bears do. And what I mean, just run the shit out of the ball. Like, I don't need Dalton throwing for 300 yards and 3 touchdowns. Maybe he throws for 200. Maybe he throws a touchdown. That's all fine and dandy. Just let Herbert eat. Let Monty eat. Let these beast running backs that Ryan Pace has continued to find in the draft and have made a difference. Let them be the heart and soul and the heartbeat of this offense on Thursday. So that way, at the end of the game, it's those two getting the turkey drum leg that they get to eat as the MVPs of the game. And I'm right there with you, man. Run the ball a little more. And then just when you think they haven't run the ball enough, run the ball some more.
And the spin zone is the quicker the game is over, the quicker we can get this all over with. Like, Matt Nagy might be spiking the ball with like 2 minutes left. Like, you can't fire me until the game's over. But if they run the ball, we could be in for a nice, quick, like 3-hour game and then a celebratory shit canning at the end of it.
So are you expecting something like that? He's just going to start fucking doing spikes and shit just to like prolong his stay.
He's going to be like a pitch invader or like someone that runs on the field during a sporting event. And we're going to have a lot of fun with the gifts. Let's just say, like, when it actually does happen, a bunch of fathead gifts will be released from the Bears on Tap account. Shout out to Pinata Farms. Like, they need to sponsor us because we use them like every day.
Pinata Farms are going to be alive and well. Let's just say that. I honestly think, and I agree with all the points you guys made about the running game. This could be a huge Montgomery game, and I expect it should be. Like, there's no reason why you can't run the ball on this team. They're giving up the second most rushing yards per game in the NFL this season. And in the last 3 games, they've given up the most by far. 188.3 rushing yards per game allowed the last 3 games. So I don't care who the quarterback is, Dalton, whatever. Run some play action, get Montgomery the ball, a heavy dose of Montgomery. We already talked about Jared Goff being the check down, the dink and dunk specialist that he is. So he's going to bleed the clock too. So, I mean, this is going to be an ugly one. We already know that. But, even the under looks good as low as the total is. Like, you could probably still look at the under there if we're talking gambling. But, no, man, I think this is going to be this could really be, especially 2 games back. He's played 2 games now for Montgomery since the injury. So you got to think he's probably starting to get his legs back under him a little bit. And like Alap said right there in the comments, Monty carved them up in week 4 before he got hurt, had 2 touchdowns too. So absolutely, this is a team that you can do that against. And what better way than to feature your best offensive player on the field? I'll give him a heavy dose. I want to see Montgomery with the rock in his hand all game long.
Probably like upwards of 25 times, I would say.
Yeah. I truly hope that Thursday's game is the ugliest thing that any of us have to see, because
3-2 game.
Yeah, because that means if this football game's the ugliest thing we see, like that 1916 game is a perfect way to describe it, like you said earlier, Bdon, because the Bears run the rock. Hopefully Nagy gets canned, which is going to be beautiful. And then whatever feast that any of us and all of us hopefully have in front of us on Thursday is going to look that much more beautiful if this game is the ugliest thing we see. So, because if this game isn't the ugliest thing we see, then that means I am going to be having nightmares seeing Matt Nagy's face on my turkey as my dad takes a big knife to it and just carves that thing up. So, I'm all for ugly football if it means the rest of the day is sensationally beautiful.
Yeah, and I think too, we should have a Bears on Tap drinking game, because the broadcast crew, I don't know who it's actually going to be for Thursday. They're going to mention the shit show that has gone on. So for every time that they bring up the Matt Nagy situation, the firing, either the firing or the booing in public spaces, take a shot. Doesn't matter what. Just don't do Malort. I know that's like anti-Chicago, but can't do the Malort.
Anybody that says they like Malort has had they need some help. Like, we're here to talk to you. The Bears on Tap crew has your back, because if you truly enjoy Malort, you concern me as a human being. I want to know who hurt you. That's my honest question to anybody that enjoys Malort.
Find your closest liquor that's not Malort so that Ron's head doesn't explode and so that your taste buds can taste the turkey when you're done and take them straight to the head. But on the defensive side of the ball, I think this is a game that you can get away with like exotic blitz packages. You can send extra pressure. Jared Goff is a mental midget. When that pressure is coming and he doesn't know what he's going to do, he throws up ducks. He fumbles the ball. He'll take quite a few. I anticipate we'll get at least 3 sacks on Sunday. I don't see how we don't get 3 sacks, especially considering last week we had like 6 against a relatively mobile quarterback and a better but battered offensive line.
Mm-hmm.
I think the defense is poised to have a couple takeaways. I think that they can have their way with this offense because it's not the best offense. But the one thing that the Lions do have going for them is they play for a guy that they'd run through a freaking brick wall for. And like you said, Ron, they haven't been playing terrible football over there. They lost to the Browns by 3 points. They tied the Steelers. And they've been in a lot. They literally, that entire division, they lost to the Ravens on some crazy extraterrestrial bullshit and a 66-yard field goal from a guy who can make a field goal from 70. If that wasn't Justin Tucker, that game goes to overtime. Maybe they win. Lamar Jackson also converted like a 4th and 19 in that game. So the Lions lose only in a way that the Lions are capable of doing it. But if the Bears don't bring their A game to Detroit, we could be that first, win for them. And to be honest, like, that's going to be terrible. Like we said, all of our heads will collectively explode. I don't even know what we're going to say on Friday when we come back. Like, well, that will be to be determined. But with that being said, like for offense and defensive key players, and then obviously for the score prediction, where are you guys at on this game?
Again, I think the key, I know we've discussed it at length. I feel like Montgomery is the easy answer here. I'm not going to go the easy answer. I'm going to go with the boys up in front of him. That's the offensive line. I'm staring at the big guys. They need to be able to move the ball. And to me, at least when I've watched it, again, I'm going to put my little offensive lineman hat on here. The most success that the Bears have really had this season is when they run inside zone. Inside zone has been their best bet because it's not just man-on-man blocking. This offensive line is not built to man-on-man block, especially with Mustapher at center and a 39-year-old Jason Peters playing left tackle. But when they can get them moving, and for those that don't understand what inside versus outside zone is zone blocking is exactly what it sounds like. You go to a zone. Inside zone, it's usually one step and go. It's pretty quick. You're working concepts. You're working stacks of men, 2 guys for 2 guys type style. Outside zone, exactly what it says. You're working the ball outside. You're trying to spread the defense kind of like silly putty. When you spread it too far and you start to create those holes as it spreads, that's what you want to do with outside zone. And then your running back sets up his own blocks. I want to see a lot of inside and outside zone against this Lions front 7 on Thursday. I keep wanting to say Sunday. It's just we're all mentally programmed that way. But on Thursday, that's what I want to see. And I want to see the offensive line actually establish holes. Because if they establish holes the way that, let's be honest, they've shown at times they can do this season, then Monty and Herbert are going to have an absolute field day running all over the Detroit Lions. You mentioned that stat, Joey, 188 yards per game that they're giving up on the ground. I think the Bears could easily rush for 200 yards against this team if they do it correctly and they call running plays to the strength of that offensive line. So I am looking at the offensive line as my key on offense. They got to step up and play big. If they do, this team's going to run all over the Lions and ultimately come away with a W. On defense, again, real easy to go with a guy like Roquan or a guy like Robert Quinn, who needs to have a big game. I'm going to go with Jalen Johnson because the reason I say that, I'm going to challenge Jalen Johnson to get a takeaway, right? We've talked about this Bears defense needing to get some takeaways, and they're due for a time. I want a Jalen Johnson pick 6 on Thursday. You know how sweet that would be? Like, it feels like he's due for more interceptions because the guy just doesn't get looked at because nobody wants to throw at him because he's been that good. So Jalen Johnson, my key defensive player. I'd love to see a pick 6. Offensive line are my offensive key. Score prediction, I'm going to go something similar to what you had to say, Bdon, not exactly in saying 19-16, but I'm going to roll out and I'm going to say this game's going to be ugly. It's going to be like 23-19. Somehow they're going to find a way to get there. And I think the Bears should do it. They should pull it out, assuming that they play the way they can, even with the roster being a little beaten up. So 23-19, Bears win. Give me Jalen. Give me the O-line.
Joey, for you?
That 23-19, that sounds like an over, doesn't it?
What's the over-under for the game?
I thought it was 41? 41 and a half?
Yeah, and for the betting line, it opened at -3.5 and has since moved to 3 flat in the Bears' favor.
Yeah, and a lot of money, a lot of money is on the Lions in this spot. A lot of sharp bettors do not understand why the Bears are even favored in this spot. And if you watch them play and like how they blow games and then all this drama going on with the coach, it really doesn't surprise me at all why sharp bettors are on the Lions. But something just tells me that the guys, the players, like this is on the players right now. I'm putting it, not everything is on the players, of course not. But I mean, I think these guys are going to come out there with a hair on fire, like a hair under their ass. They're ready. They're fucking charged up. Like they're sick of hearing all this shit all week or Nagy not addressing them. Maybe they want to just give up on him. But I think these guys in that locker room, and especially like guys like Roquan, leaders on that defense, you got guys like Montgomery on the offense. Like these dudes, they step up their leaders, and they're not going to let this team just like quit. They play too hard for the rest of the team not to see that and not to play hard for them alongside those guys. So the way I look at this, like score prediction, I'm saying that the Bears are going to win this game. I don't know what it is. I talked myself into it. Like, I think it's going to be an ugly game. I think it's going to be like a 17-14 game. And I'm not sure that they cover the spread, but I think there will be more money on the Lions coming in. So I'm going to wait and try to get it at 2.5. But that's just my little gambling tip of the day. But anyways, like
closing line value. And if you pay attention to the OnTap Bets crew, we've been on the right side of some really good closing line value this last week with the Bulls and the Bears. We actually covered the spread because we got it early as well this last game.
Yeah, and look at we're just a quick shout out, like OnTap as an organization is #1 on tally site for rankings as far as like for gambling for NFL. Anyways, just
let's
for
fucking
NFL.
go,
dude. Yeah, I was gonna say
#1, and that's out of 79. That's out of
79. And we're talking. There's CBS in there. There's ESPN in there. They got the Barstool guys in there. They got everyone in there, and we're just a bunch of guys that just love to gamble on sports. And I guess we're right more often than not, which is pretty cool. I didn't actually know that. That's very cool and tough.
Yeah, definitely over 50%. But I'll just say this. I got to go back to my key players, I guess. Offensively, I'll just ride along with you there, Ron. Like, I honestly believe that it's a big Montgomery day, and, it starts the guys up front. But I'm going to go with Montgomery for my big dude. Like, I expect also with Dalton in the game that, I mean, he doesn't really want to take deep shots. Yeah, we saw that deep shot to Goodwin, but it could be a Komet game too as well. So I'm going to say Montgomery is my big like offensive player. He's going to have a huge game, and I love his over at the 75.5 rushing yards prop. Like, I'm taking that too. Anyways, I'm teasing a whole bunch of gambling shit here, but I'm doing the podcast, the live stream tomorrow with Quentin. So you guys can check that out, whoever's watching, listening, whatever.
Who is probably our best analytical guy in the entire company, and it's not even close. Like, that dude is the smartest man I've seen come through these doors at OnTap. We've had some pretty smart guys come through here.
Yeah, we got one in the comments right here sharing his score prediction, Mr.
Alap.
Saying it'll be a 21-12 Bears victory.
And for those of you that don't know, Alap does a lot on the writing side. Take a look at his takeaways after a game or his game previews before a game, and get yourself situated if you don't have enough time to listen to us.
Bears matchup flashback, also fun series he does. That's coming out tomorrow morning. So encourage everybody to venture over to www.ontapsportsnet.com where they can go ahead and check that out.
So now that Alap gave us 21-12, you had mentioned you kind of like the under. So where do you have the final score falling? You said 17-14, right?
I think 17-14, but I wouldn't be surprised if it's like 17-13 or 17-10.
Yeah, something like that.
Because I don't see the Lions putting up a ton of points here, because I think the defense is going to come through. Like, my defensive guys of the game, instead of going with Robert Quinn and Roquan, the obvious guys that have been really performing for this defense, especially the last game, I'm going to go a little bit off the radar, kind of like Ron did, and I think it's going to be maybe not off the radar. Like Travis Gibson had a huge game.
Yeah.
He had 1 sack, 5 tackles, 2 tackles for loss. And
he was having fun out there too. You saw the grin on his face.
Yeah, he was having a hell of a time. Like, and honestly, I think this could be a Bilal Nichols game too. Like he needs to step up. Gibson has actually been more consistent as far as getting pressure than Nichols. Nichols only has, I believe, 3 pressures on the entire season, and he has 2 sacks. But 3 pressures on the entire season for Bilal Nichols, which, I mean, you could take that with a grain of salt because stats, like how do they quantify some of this stuff? Like how do they look at some of this stuff as far as
how do you define exactly what a pressure is? I think is what you're trying to get at, right?
Uh-oh. Did we lose Joey?
We might have lost Joey's volume again here momentarily. I think what he was. I think he was. Yeah, we can't hear you, buddy.
We're good. He's like a mime right now. He's just like,
he is. But filling in, I think with what he, where he was going with this, 17-10 final prediction score.
17-10 Bears.
Not okay. Bears. But like what he was saying, right? There he is. We can hear you, buddy.
Go ahead and finish your point. We can hear you now. Say something. Joey?
Speak to the people. I don't know if he can hear us anymore.
He can hear us, yeah. But sorry, this is really bad podcasting for those that are still tuned in. We're almost done. Joey, we love you.
Joey, we love you. But like kind of what he was saying though, right? With like the pressures, like how do you define pressures? Defensively, what is the criteria for a pressure from a defensive lineman, I think is what he was trying to get at with Bilal Nichols. But I think that's a great point about Travis Gibson. I think that's another guy too that just needs to have a really good game on Thursday. I want to say Sunday. It's like I have to keep stopping myself. But it's certainly something that
we're less than 36 hours away from it, bro. It's crazy.
I know. It's bananas. Who are your offensive and defensive players, sir? We haven't gotten to that as well as your score prediction.
I'm glad we've gotten to this point. As much as I want to see us run the hell out of the football, I think that Mr. Red Rocket, Mr. Red Rifle, Mr. Red Rider, Bdon has something to prove. And I think that given the circumstances of him signing a short-term deal with the Bears, this is a tryout game for Andy Dalton. This is a game that Andy Dalton is going to use to position his future to get another $10 million bag next year. Expect Andy Dalton to have – I won't put a statistical measure on it, but expect him to have a very efficient game. He may not have – like we said, it's not going to be a high-scoring game, so I wouldn't expect like 303, but expect him to have a high completion percentage, expect him to hold on to the football, and expect him to have at least, couple passing touchdowns and around 200 yards. I won't say he'll get to 303, but you would think that maybe Allen Robinson could play this week. The way Darnell Mooney has been playing the last few weeks has been phenomenal. And I really like the way that when used properly, Cole Kmet can be used. Mm-hmm. Now, obviously, we have no idea what type of game plan we're going to get. And like we said, probably going to be a low-scoring game. I'm looking to the defense to create turnovers. I will go out and say that on the defensive side of the ball, and this is, we'll go front seven because those are the ones who, in essence, create the turnovers via the pressure, right? I would like to see 3 turnovers on Sunday. Could be a fumble and 2 picks, could be 2 picks and a fumble, but I want to see monumental plays made by this defense that flip the field, set us up in plus territory, or kill drives that the Lions think that they're going to get some points from. With that being said, if everything plays out the way I anticipate it, score will be, I'll say 23-13 Bears. So I think we win this a little bit more comfortably than Vegas has indicated and what most of the sharps, like Joey said, have indicated. But I think that, and I shouldn't be surprised by saying this, I think that as long as we play our type of football, which is crazy. I don't even really know what our type of football is. The guys in the locker room know that. As long as they play their game and they don't let Matt Nagy screw this up, this is a game that you absolutely have got to win. And now that I think about it, we're probably going to tie. Because that what other way to send Matt Nagy off than a tie? Like, I don't know. You got any final thoughts?
Oh, that tie pains me.
I can't believe it only took us an hour to figure that out, but they could very well end up tying as well. So
Yeah, the tie would be absolutely miserable. We got Joey Rigoda back with us here for the last couple of minutes. Buddy, while you were gone, just to fill you in, so we've got Bdon. He's taken the Red Rifle on offense as his player, and then the front seven in general on defense to create some turnovers. He wants
yes.
3
I
turnovers.
want
Yeah,
3 turnovers on Thursday.
meat on the table. Good things here, and now we're just kind of getting to these kind of the wrap up thoughts. And guys, why am I nervous? Why am I nervous for this game on Thursday? I have weird feelings about it. I just want to see the Bears win. But even more so, I want to see Matt Nagy get fired because guess what? If the Bears win and Nagy doesn't get fired, it's like
it's like a win-win.
At what cost
Yeah.
did we just win a football game?
Right. And like my turkey's going to be a little more dry than it normally would be. And like, I'm not excited for that. I like moist turkey and I like good quality stuffing. And neither one of those are going to taste good if the bald fraud is still roaming the sidelines at Soldier Field on December 5th, when I will be in attendance when they take on the Arizona Cardinals. So I am not in for that. It'll be, guys, it'll be fun. And, while we're kind of thinking about things, I do have a final thought, if you don't mind me sharing, Bdon.
Go
just
crazy.
a little plug for our friends here. Remind everybody, if you guys want to bet, Bdon and Joey are the betting guys here. I'm just the football nerd that rides them when I can and bets when I decide to. But make sure you're going over to our friends over at Bet Rivers. You can go to betrivers.com and sign up with them. If you sign up on location up in Des Plaines, use our promo code ONTAP. You'll get a deposit match of up to $250 on your first deposit. And make sure you go and bet with them all the time. As Bdon indicated before the Ravens game, they like to do boosts in favor of the Bears. They are the official gambling partner of the Chicago Bears. Even more of a reason, if you listen to Bears on Tap, to go and sign up with our friends at Bet Rivers. And if you plan on attending the game, like if you want to come say hey to me on December 5th at Soldier Field, you can go over to our friends over at vividseats.com because now OnTap Sportsnet is affiliated with Vivid Seats. And if you go ahead and you spend $100 over at Vivid Seats and use promo code ONTAP, that's all one word, you get $10 off as long as it is for a purchase of $100 or more, because Vivid Seats, life happens live. So make sure you go visit them as well. Huge thanks to Bet Rivers. Huge thanks to our friends over at Vivid Seats. Be sure to partner with those that are friends of us here at Bears on Tap. And all I'm going to say is happy Thanksgiving, boys, is my final thought. I am thankful for this crew and the Bears crew and the On Tap crew. And Bdon, go Bears, and let's enjoy some turkey and stuffing.
Joey, what are you thankful for this Thanksgiving?
I mean, I just think that Matt Nagy's turkey, I hope it's as dry as the fucking desert. I hope that they leave his ass in Detroit. Even if they win, I just want them to leave his ass there. I don't really care. I think the Bears win. I was trying to do a meme thing over here and just with my fingers and do the score prediction. But 17-10, I think, is probably what I'm going to finalize on. I think they win the game. If the Bears lose, Nagy might have to walk home along I-94, says our guy, a lap. So yeah, I agree with you, man. Just fucking make his ass walk, and hopefully he doesn't get run over by a turkey on the side of the road. But actually, I hope he does. Just don't die. But I think what it comes down to too, I want to agree with a couple more points that we made. Maybe Jalen Johnson can be a little bit more aggressive too in the secondary because of how much of a dink master this Jared Goff fella is. So I think you got Eddie Jackson. It looks like he's trending in the right direction. So him back there playing deep and playing solid coverage back there. I agree. Jalen Johnson probably at least has one interception in this game. And those are pretty much my parting thoughts, man. I'm looking forward to this game, win or lose. It's probably going to be a good thing for the Bears, so hopefully. And, that's about all I got, fellas.
Yeah, and my final thoughts are tail me on the shitbag Bdon parlay and just listen, okay? We talked about it before we started. It's not the prettiest. I don't usually like taking all money line parlays, but as long as the Bears win Thursday morning, the Cowboys are going to beat the Raiders and the Bills are going to beat the Saints. You have a nice little plus 226 all money line parlay at the end of the day. With that being said, Bears by 1,000, but we'll take 3. 3 is enough. And yeah, we'll be back with you guys on Friday. We know we went a little long today, but with the shit show that has been going on at Hallis Hall and in the greater Chicago Bears media rooms and their press conferences and all that, we had to talk about it. Stay off the Bluebird and stay off the news channels and stuff. This will unfold and it will happen. We just have to be patient with it because, as we know, the Bears don't normally fire people during the regular season. And as I've stated in my name at Bdon 300, we can't even fire correctly. So we'll see what we get out there on Thursday. Hopefully it's a Bears win. Hopefully it's a dominant performance. Hopefully that those guys, in that locker room, the players, the people that we actually support, are able to find their rhythm. Because some guys have had great performances over the last few weeks that have gotten overshadowed by bad team play and bad coaching. So with that being said, do we have any final thoughts, Joey? I saw you were raising your hand.
Yeah, just one more thing. Atalanta's not a real soccer team.
Yes. Yeah.
College basketball is not a real sport, and Matt Nagy's not a real head coach.
Yes.
Whether it's Black Friday or it's Black Monday after the season, Matt Nagy's as good as gone. So at least we can be a little bit thankful and happy for that this Thanksgiving.
Yeah, and if you guys get this in time, peep the timeline for some Champions League winners tomorrow because Bdon is back in full effect. But with that being said, we are Bears on Tap. I'm your host, Brandon Suarez. You can follow me on Twitter at Bdon300. You can follow my technical difficulty friend up in the top right corner. His Wi-Fi kept kicking him out. He was losing sound. But we find a way to win a podcast, and Joey was able to make it back for the end. Follow him at the Riot326. He's got a lot of gambling picks in college and pro sports, usually pretty on point. And then follow my guy at Loose on Tap, Mr. Ron Loose. I would say the middle ground of the podcast, the guy who keeps us nice and even, the guy who keeps us on track. And like I said when he first was introduced, one of the many heartbeats of the On Tap Sportsnet. With that being said, we'll be back with you guys on Friday. Find a way to win a football game on Thanksgiving. Enjoy your time with your families. Don't let this team get you too down, and bear down.
Bear down.
Bear down.